When it comes to spending money wisely, you might not be thinking about spending hundreds of dollars on dress shoes. But hear me out, because in this video, I'm going to answer the question of whether a $395 Allen Edmonds dress shoe can be far less expensive over the long term compared to a $130 dress shoe. And does quality win out over low price when it comes to long-term value? Stick around to find out. Hey folks, Richard Walls here, and welcome to my channel where I talk all things career development and personal finance. So if those two topics are of interest to you, do consider subscribing down below and hitting the notification bell so you get notified of when I post new content. So with that said, let's get to it. Now you may be wondering why I'm talking about dress shoes on a channel that's all about career development and personal finance. The answer is simple, is because it has everything to do with both. When it comes to career, a lot of success really comes from how you present yourself. An image is one of those elements. Now, what I mean by that is not that you need to go out and spend tens of thousands of dollars on some luxury wardrobe in order to look presentable. In fact, you can do fairly well without having to spend a whole lot of money in the first place getting a wardrobe that's good quality and has versatile items. But a professional image will go a long way in leaving good impressions and building a brand. And there's also a confidence you get from dressing well and feeling good about how you look. And when it comes to the finance part, making good financial decisions as it relates to clothing isn't always necessarily about buying the cheapest item. It's really about finding the best value, which is a combination of quality and price. So it's all relevant. And also I really like shoes, and I've been wanting to make a shoe video for a very long time. I've got shoes of varying price points, so I can personally attest to the differences one might find in quality and longevity. The two shoes I'll be referencing in this video are the Allen Edmonds Park Avenue Cap-Toe Oxford, which is the $395 shoe, and a generic Cole Haan dress shoe that is in the ballpark of about $130. So let's talk a little bit about each, and then we can get into the details on quality and which shoe is actually less expensive over the long term. But before we get into that, I'd love to hear from you what shoes you prefer that you might have had good experiences with. Whether it's a shoe around the $130 mark or something in the range of hundreds of dollars, I'd love to hear from you, so leave a comment down below. So the Allen Edmonds Park Avenue Cap-Toe Oxford is one of the most well-known American-made classics. It's a shoe of choice worn by former US presidents, with Ronald Reagan being the first. It ends up being a staple in a lot of shoe collections because it's a simple elegance and classic design, but also because it's incredibly well made, which means that it lasts a really long time. So what makes it great quality? I'll give you three main reasons. First is high quality leather, which means that it ages better, it doesn't have any unnatural deformations over time, and isn't as susceptible to damage. Second is better polish and color. And so this also ties into the first point, but this also means that it ages better. The color lightens over time, more noticeable on tan or brown leather dress shoes. The color fades evenly and it's not blotchy, it looks more natural. And third is the Goodyear Welt construction. So this gives the shoe a strong structure. Most importantly though, it allows the shoe to be resoled. That is the changing out of the soles, because over time it wears out. And while the shoe itself can remain intact and can continue to be used and continue to be in good shape, it's the sole that gets worn out, so those eventually have to be replaced. All of this means greater longevity, and it's even better if you take proper care of the shoes. Now, as for the Cole Haan shoe, I'm actually just referring to, again, a generic $130 dress shoe. The brand itself has a fairly rich history, and the shoes are actually a pretty good quality for an entry tier dress shoe. Now, there was a period of time where it was actually owned by Nike from 1988 to 2012, and of course during that time mass production methods were favored quite a bit more, which impacted quality in a handful of ways that I'll get into. Now, before I explain that, within the Cole Haan portfolio, you have a lot of shoes ranging from about $100, maybe even a little bit less, all the way up to $300 plus. And within that, you of course have a little bit of variation in quality. In my opinion, the brand is actually overpriced for the most part, but within the $130 give or take range, I think that's a good price point for what you're getting here. And the good news is there are plenty of options around that price. So what exactly makes this shoe lower quality than an Allen Edmonds shoe? Well, naturally, it's really the inverse of everything that I mentioned about the Allen Edmonds shoe. First is you typically have a lower quality leather, so there's a higher likelihood that you'll see some kind of cracking, even deformation of leather. Second, you may have lower quality polish and color. When the color does fade, it will look blotchy more often than not, a little bit unnatural looking, and it'll look worn, but not in a good way. And it'll get to that point sooner than a higher quality dress shoe. Third, and this is probably the most important point, which is a low quality construction. So when it comes to mass produced shoes like what Cole Haan really is, instead of a Goodyear Welt, which involves stitching the sole to the bottom of the shoe, most shoes in this price range, so it's not just Cole Haan, it's really anything that you're looking at in this price range, they're gonna have soles that are glued on, which is again, a hallmark of mass-produced shoes. It's simple to manufacture that way. But what that means is that you cannot resole those shoes. So once the sole eventually wears out, you'll likely have to replace the entire shoe. Now, even though I'm pointing out the negatives in quality, I'm not really here to bash the shoe or the brand, because they generally have some really great designs, and for the price point of $130 give or take, you get a decent quality shoe and you can have a good experience with them. And they can last if you take care of them, but still they're gonna last only so long. So how does the long-term math compare from a $395 shoe to a $130 shoe? Let's take a 15-year time horizon and we'll assume pretty normal use, and we'll do the math from that. The Cole Haan shoe is going to have an upfront cost of $130, and the lifespan of these shoes, if worn regularly, say 2 to 3 times a week, is about 2 years before they start showing very visible signs of wear and discomfort. So over 15 years, if you replace every 2 years, you're spending around $975. Now, could you get away with replacing possibly every 3 years? Again, possibly. You can maybe get away with that, but again, you're going to have a shoe that's going to look pretty worn in most cases, and you may experience some discomfort when it comes to the soles. Compare that to Allen Edmonds, which has an upfront cost of $395. The lifespan of the shoe itself is more or less indefinite. They can last many, many decades, but the sole will be the piece that will eventually wear down. But given the quality here, you actually don't need to resole very much at all. Now, you'll hear a lot of different recommendations on how often you should resole your shoes, and you'll hear recommendations from shoe repair shops, also the shoemaker. Now, naturally, they'll recommend that you resole more frequently than not, because of course that's one way they make money. Why wouldn't they recommend that? But what I think is an appropriate number, and this of course can vary quite a bit depending on frequency of use, how many miles you've walked in the shoe, and what kind of wear and tear accumulates over time, and also personal preference on how the shoe feels and the comfort level. You may want to change out sooner than what I'm about to recommend, but the number that I had in mind was about 5 years. So based on what I mentioned earlier about normal use being around 2 to 3 times per week. And if you did this directly with Allen Edmonds, they do offer this service. They charge about $125. Of course, that's not the only place you can go to get your shoe resoled. You can go to many shoe repair shops, and the pricing may maybe a little bit less, so it's worth exploring. So in 15 years, you have the upfront cost of $395, and then over that time period, you're likely going to be resoling about 2 to 3 times. So let's just say 3 times. That's going to come out to a total of $770. Now, while the longer term economics generally favors the higher quality shoe, if we looked at this from a 5-year time horizon, so a little bit shorter, what we'll find is that the less expensive shoe actually wins out a little bit here. So within 5 years, you're looking at a total cost for the $130 shoe at around $325. And on the higher end shoe, let's assume you do the resole, which again is $125. That gives you a total of $520. So again, in the short term, that's not going to win out. So really the higher quality shoe is a long-term play, not necessarily a short one. Now, one thing I didn't mention in all these calculations is some of the maintenance that you'd have to do for your shoes. That would be polishing, that would be cleaning. But I didn't include that in the calculation because that's going to be, or should be the same, I should say, for either shoe that you get. You want to maintain as much as possible your higher end shoes as well as your entry tier shoes, and I've got both. So I want to leave you with 2 pro tips. First is, even though the higher end shoes deliver a better value over the long term, that doesn't mean you should completely avoid the less expensive shoes. For one, you may not be in a financial position at the moment to invest in high quality dress shoes. And that's okay, because even the less expensive dress shoes are still going to add quite a bit of value. They're going to get good use. But even if you are in a position to buy higher end dress shoes, it's still a good idea to have a pair or a few pairs of less expensive shoes that you don't have to worry so much about when it comes to getting them messy or dirty. Second is to realize even more value from the higher end dress shoes. You may consider waiting on discounts and sales, of which there are many directly from the manufacturer, as well as through places like Nordstrom or Nordstrom Rack. I often find many great deals from there. Not only that, if you were to shop at Allen Edmonds, and other manufacturers may have this as well, but they have an offering what they call factory seconds. And really, these are shoes that upon manufacturing, or when they were manufactured, they came out with a few very slightly noticeable cosmetic defects. And in some cases, or I would say in many cases, a lot of these cosmetic defects are not very noticeable at all. But because of that, they often offer really nice discounts. And functionally, the shoes are in good shape. And of course, there's a lot you can do with polish, depending on what the cosmetic imperfection is, to improve that and make it look brand new. With that said, hopefully I've sparked a little bit of curiosity in you to explore the world of dress shoes. It's really fun and interesting to learn about. And when it comes to high quality dress shoes, there's a lot of value that can be had from them compared to maybe less expensive dress shoes. And not only that, it's good for the environment. You're not throwing away shoes all the time. You get to reuse these over and over again. And again, with a shoe like Allen Edmonds, that's not the only one. There's many other manufacturers that are good quality. These are going to last you decades. So hope all that information helped. And with that said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you around.